Widra, about to explain to you about the Polaris 280 and little tips and tricks. Common things that happen to them. The float fills up with water, which causes it to do wheel stands because it takes all the balance out of it. And that's quite easy to find out whether it is full of water. It's just by pulling it off. A lot of people think it's threaded, but it's not. You just push it on and off. Give it a shake, and it's all good. We'll leave that off for now. Now to pull it apart, take the float off, give the bag a twist. It's got a grub screw here which adjusts the pressure for coming out of the tail. You undo that. It's an Allen key, but you can use a screwdriver. You undo that. It's got a screw in the top here, which you undo, and then that top part just lifts up. And that exposes all the top. They're very simple the way they work. Water goes in the top here, comes down, some of it's diverted to the tail, some of it's diverted through this tube here, which fires onto a paddle wheel, which I'll show you the paddle wheel, if I can get steady enough. And that's it. The water comes through the tube, out of that little hole, fires on the paddle wheel. It turns the shaft, which in turn turns both these wheels, and that's the driving. That's how it's driven. The water also diverts down to the bottom. Now to take the bottom off, you've got two screws. And that's the base off. And that holds the idle wheel and what they call the swing arm, which is in there. We'll get to that. The water comes down through here to these Venturi jets, which fire up into the bag. Now, they call them Venturi jets because when they fire up, it causes a Venturi action, which then sucks rubbish up through there and into the bag. And that's how they pick up the rubbish. Very rarely do you have problems around here. The only time you have to really take the base off is if you're putting Posi-Track tyres, the suction cup tyres on, and we'll get to that. Tune-up kits, if you have to, after a certain amount of hours, everything's going to wear out, so you've got your turbine bearings, which you get to just by undoing those 4 screws, and the cover here. Now to get the turbine itself out, you are going to have to remove the wheels. The wheels are very simple to undo. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can just undo the axle screws here. And the wheel just comes off. Or you can just undo the screw here. Just do it gently. As the units get older, these can get brittle and they can break. And that's all that is to it. Just a screw and a washer. And then that wheel will just pop off. Just like that, and you've got the 2 bearings in there. And then that'll allow you to undo these 4 screws. Then that will just pop out. They're the main parts to be replaced in, is really the bearings. These shafts can wear out from the teeth. They can wear the teeth on, it's easy if I show you on this one. These teeth can get worn out by the shaft, and eventually they do wear out the shaft teeth as well. Bearings on the rear wheel, they just come off the same way as those two. If you've got a tile pool, or some fiberglass pools are very slippery, you might need what they call posi-track tyres. What they've got is suction cups all the way around the wheels. You only put 2 of the suction cup tyres on. That's the difference between the tyres. All of that is basically disassembling the whole 280. There are a couple other little things, but they very rarely need replacing. So now we'll just put it back together, and I'll show you how to put the posi-track tyres on. Now, if you're going to be putting posi-track tyres on, there are a few things that you need to do. You can't just change the tyres. You take the old tyres off, put the new posi-track tyres on, which are a bit of a pain, but you get there. Now, even if you weren't putting the posi-track tyres on, this is something that works for both. You have to do for both. You have to line the wheels up. You have to line the teeth up with the teeth on the shaft, and you have to have enough pressure that you can have too much or not enough. Now, you don't need to do these screws up very tight at all, because you are going to want to be able to move this wheel forward and back, so it puts more or less pressure on that axle. So basically you have it loose, you push it so that it's got tension against the shaft. Just do 1 screw up, and then you want to be able to spin it freely so it's not too tight. If you had it too tight, it would bind. It would just go bleh, bleh. Now, if it was too loose, it would start to skip. So what we don't want is it to do that noise. So you want to do it up so that you can, and it doesn't skip, but still rolls freely. That's a good position for the tyre, or for the wheel. So you do that to both sides. That's what you want it to sound like, and not skipping the teeth. Now, once you've got that far, with the posi-track tyres, if you've got to make an adjustment to what they call the idle wheel, because if you don't, what will happen is, you can see there, it's just rattling it away, and it's putting too much pressure on, and it'll just end up jamming. So what we've got to do is, the easiest thing is to take that screw out, the wheel will just pop off, and that's what they call the swing arm, and it's got this spring here. You want to delete that spring. So that's pretty much all you've got to do to it, is just get rid of that spring. You can leave the spring on, I normally do. Put all that back together. Then when the base goes back on, actually that's pretty good. I usually just have that wheel pressing against my body, and so you want it to drive a little bit forward, but skip on the reverse. So that means it hasn't got too much tension on that idle wheel. And you can see that it's not bouncing around or anything like that while it's driving. And that's pretty much all there is to putting the Positrax on. You've just got to remember to remove that spring and adjust. Usually you've got to adjust the rear wheel back a little bit so it's not rubbing on the idle wheel and not shaking itself to bits. And we'll just put the rest of it back together. That's a captive screw in there so it doesn't fall out. That's all back. One little trick is the grub screw for adjusting the pressure to the tail. When you screw that in, rough rule of thumb is screw it all the way in and then 1.5 turns out. And that's usually a pretty good setting for the pressure coming out the tail and allowing it to whip around. The float just pushes on. Usually I like to have my thumb, put my thumb in the gap. That's about the right distance, about an inch or 25 mil. There it goes back on. That clips on. And now you have a Positrax ready for all your slippery surfaces like tiles or certain fiberglass pools.